Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
ABC Wednesday.
Y'all complain all day. We want books. We want paper towels in the classroom. Bet you want raises, too.
I'm still waiting on the paper towels.
Abbott Elementary returns with the new season.
We asked the district for more after-school programs. They gave us $50 for class pets instead.
Critics cheer. Abbott Elementary continues to be one of the funniest and most beloved shows on TV.
What y'all doing out there?
Taking bribes.
Proud of y'all.
Abbott Elementary. Season premiere Wednesday, 9:30, 8:30 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Everybody, we're back. We're done Listener Submitted Month. We're here with our own picks. I got this one. This was kind of me rolling a dice. I remembered seeing this when it came out, thought it was really good, have genuinely not watched it since 2014, but thought 10-year anniversary coming up. I know it takes place at Halloween. I know it has a cult following. Shocked to find out that there's actually some news of the last year tied to this movie that's going to be interesting to talk about later on. But we are talking about The Guest from 2014. It was the follow-up from the writing directing team that brought us You're Next. Something that I thought was very interesting when I was doing some research on this is that the director, and Kyle, correct, it's Wingard, right?
Yeah,
Adam Wingard.
I usually say Wingard, yeah.
Adam Wingard.
But yeah.
Apparently, when making this movie, Adam Wingard fought very hard, but still failed because he wanted the movie to start with the old 80s Canon Films logo. Because he was just like, this is the type of movie that we're trying to make, like an 80s, what would be an 80s Canon film. In fact, it actually pulls inspiration from like an old Chuck Norris Canon film premise. And I was like, I love that. So before I dive into the walkthrough, I just wanted to give that fun fact because we were robbed that at the start of the movie.
At the start. And it would have just made it all much, but no, I fucking love this movie. This was really a lot of fun, but it does live in that world that you're referencing, and those guys usually wear their influences on their sleeves. This one in particular, and The Guest, it wasn't quite horror like I thought it was, but then at the same time, well, you're gonna get into it. There's a lot of tonal stuff that it makes me really enjoy this watch. I had only seen like maybe a third of it. I don't know why I didn't return to it when I did, but I'd only seen like a third of it in the past.
Well, in interviews,
Scott, what about you? Have you seen it?
Interviews, they said that it was a horror film disguised as a thriller, which I think is. I mean, I could also say it's a thriller disguised as a horror movie. It depends on which. Yeah, it depends on what act you're watching. To kick it off, we are introduced to Dave Collins, a former Army sergeant who's recently been discharged with an injury, and he claims to be friends with Caleb Peterson, a soldier who died in the war in Afghanistan. He visits the family of Caleb because he claims that he was asked by Caleb to check in as a dying wish and pass on a message that he loved all of them very much. The family has a daughter named Anne who works at a diner, and they have a son, Luke, who's constantly being bullied at school.
Classic family. All-American family.
All-American family. They got that 2.5, the 0.5 being a dead son. David... David learns about the family's different struggles and takes Luke on an undercover mission to take care of some of the people who've been bullying him by beating the absolute shit out of them in the middle of a bar. And this is the first thing I need to bring up because I love this bar scene. But Kyle, we said the word bar and then you immediately reach for a drink. So this seems like the perfect what's Kyle and Scott drinking moment.
So a lovely detail, and I was so excited that this bar scene came up because then there's so many options. I could have drank a Cosmopolitan or done a blowjob shot as Dan serves the bullies and their girlfriends from the other side of the bar. But he himself is enjoying a Fireball. Now he's drinking cinnamon schnapps with Tabasco.
I was going to ask if you did it because I was like, man, I do not have the stomach for that, but it'd be sweet if someone else did.
No, and I did consider putting a little bit of Tabasco just in my Fireball shot, but I did not. So I'm going to have my Fireball shot, but I assume I'm not the only one drinking here. Oh.
Because of the music, I went with 1985 Mango by Voodoo Ranger, nice. 1985 Mango IPA from New Belgium. It's not a fall drink. I had one left in the beer fridge from the summer, but also this movie is only Halloween because there are jack-o'-lanterns in it. Everybody's wearing short sleeve shirts. I mean, it's out in the desert, I guess it's fine, but it was a huge fucking shock to me that this is a Halloween movie because I had no idea that it had any... I was like, why the fuck did Matt pick this? Actually, I blamed Kyle for this because, Kyle, you are the worst offender when it comes to picking thrillers for a fucking horror movie podcast. Yes. But in any case, I was gathering images for this, and I saw this sweet picture of David when he's, in the haunted house later in the third act, and I was like, oh, it's a Halloween movie. Okay, that makes sense why it was picked. But yeah, this is not appropriate for this show. I did not enjoy my watch at all. There was a lot of gun violence, and it's the last thing I fucking care about. I mean, I know, but it's all the gun violence I'm going to watch for the rest of the year if I can help it.
I am going to strongly disagree with this. This shouldn't be part of the show, and we'll get into it.
No, I'm being facetious. It's fine. Oh, Kyle, how'd that feel?
Horrible. It felt
he
just
doesn't
like
look
a fireball to the face.
How was your drink, Scott?
Oh, it's fine. I bought a 6-pack of this because I was going to use it during the summer, and then just it was actually going to be for one of our beach movies, but then I just didn't. Something else. I picked something else, and it's fine. I mean, I'm not in the mood for a mango IPA.
Right fair. All right, so continuing the movie. David attends a Halloween party with Anna, where he wins over a bunch of her friends by smoking pot and protecting her friend Kristen from an abusive ex, and then being rewarded by having sex with Kristen. Anna begins working on a mix CD for Dave when she starts to become suspicious of him and calls the military base for more information when she's informed that David has been reported as dead. This triggers a private organization known as the KPG to be notified of David's whereabouts while he kills 2 of Anna's friends to steal a truck full of military-grade weapons.
Which is Ethan Embry and Joel David Moore.
Yes. Yeah, don't leave that out.
Great.
Leave that detail.
Yeah, we can't leave that out of there. It also led me down a weird thing where I just was curious. I was like, where's Joel David Moore been, really? Because, he kind of just vanished, and I was like, was there, a thing that I didn't know about with Joel David Moore? No, it's just he's getting paid a lot of money to do.
Nervous.
Yeah, he just does a lot of he's doing those Avatar movies, and I think those just pay enough bills that he's like, I'm good.
Yeah,
no more Grandma's Boy for me.
Yeah. He's not going to come back for the Victor Crowley too.
No, he's not. He's not going to do a sequel to Spiral. He's not doing any of it. It's a real disappointment.
I recently just got rid of my Blu-ray of Spiral. I'm sorry, everybody. I never watched it, not even once.
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, meanwhile, while all that murder's happening, the father of the family, Spencer, gets a huge promotion after his boss unexpectedly dies under strange circumstances. We jump to the high school, and this is the only line of dialogue I wrote down, is one of the bullies that David beat up is macking on a girl in the front of the class, and he sees Luke walk in, and he says the thing that every popular football player says to a random girl that he's hitting on, I'm sorry, I'll try to show you some of my magic tricks later. Before he walks to the back of the classroom. It was... I was so glad I had subtitles on to clarify that I had heard the sentence that my ears had told me that I had heard.
Yeah. Nothing gets the ladies more ready for some lovin' than magic
tricks.
Than
up close magic. Yeah.
There's a handful of those, and I wish I had written more down, but they're not one-liners because they're delivered sort of in an in a bad 80s script way. They're played super genuinely, but also written to be so that we know that they're sort of bad 80s lines. Like that magician one is like, I mean, it could be right out of Demon Wind.
It literally,
it's like, it might actually be.
If it wasn't for the fact that I saw his lips moving when he said it, I would have thought like, oh, they probably just ADR'd like a ridiculous line for laughs. Like, but I'm imagining that was in the script. And I have to imagine that Simon and Adam laughed their asses off when they typed that sentence into the screenplay.
I would imagine.
This is where, at this point in time, right before this, Luke has agreed to help Anna find out the truth about David. But as he's being harassed by one of these bullies over some strongly homophobic hate crime stuff, he fights back the way that David taught him to. And when he's about to be expelled, David stands up for him in the principal's office, which leads Luke to confess all of Anne's suspicions to Dave and basically pledge his allegiance to David. Like, you're my friend. I'm not going to backstab you. We're good. But this is what kind of sets David off on the third act of the movie. The KPG shows up at the Petersons' house, led by Major Richard Carver, causing David to go into a full-scale killing rampage.
R.I.P. Lance Reddick. I think he just passed away this year.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know
killing
that.
everybody, including Laura and Spencer Peterson, except for Carver. And I put a little personal note here. I love this part of the movie. I love the part where he kills the mom, because I think that it's where you see the switch flip, where he's like fully a horror villain at this point. Like up until this point, he's like psychotic, but he's kind of likable because it's like, oh, he's standing up to the bully. Like you can like justify it. And there's another scene that I absolutely love where he drives the car into Spencer's car, killing him. And then
he doesn't kill him. He's almost dead.
In an attempt to kill him.
Yes, thank you.
He gets out of the car and sees Spencer's alive, and he actually looks frustrated and disappointed, like whatever piece of humanity is still in David really doesn't want to have to kill this person. So he was trying to like do it in a disconnected kind of way, but instead he has to get the gun and physically kill him. But like the acting that Dan Stevenson brings in that scene, I think is amazing because his face tells like 10 minutes of exposition in a single look.
Well, he's an amazing actor, and
he's an incredible actor.
He is the only. Okay, I know I'm gonna sound like I'm ragging this movie so hard, but he's like the only entertaining part of this movie for me, because everything. My argument.
It's not your type of movie, Scott.
No, and I
totally
knew it wasn't going to be,
like,
and it's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah, no one should be afraid to. No one on this podcast should ever feel ashamed to speak how they truly feel about a movie.
Well, I know
if they
that
want
we're
to
trying
ride
to
for a movie that the other two hate, they should feel allowed to. And if they want to trash a movie that the other two love, they should also feel free to.
All I'm saying is that I know that we try to be pretty positive about the movies that we discuss and the things that we discuss in our what do we watch, what do we consume, and I knew that this movie wasn't for me, which is why I hadn't watched it previously. I also know that Dan Stevens is a phenomenal actor, and he really is showing how good he can be in a really subdued way. It's pretty cool. But I agree with you, Matt. I think that the way that he kills the mom is really super. I mean, I want to say fucked up, but it's almost like I don't know if it's fucked up or if it's just really good writing because it exemplifies what this project did to their son as well. Because I think that he
says we were in the same project together,
and I don't think that was a lie.
No,
I think that was true.
So I don't think that anything he said has been a lie throughout. I think everything he says in this movie is how he believes. I think it's just we're about to get into it. There's a deleted backstory that I want to read but I think that they chose to delete it. They wanted there to be more mystery to the project, but in the original script, it explains a little bit more. So Carver picks up Anne from work, and he explains roughly who David is and what happened. Here's what I want to talk about. So while the footage elaborating on David's backstory was deleted after the test screenings hated it, the original script gave more insight to what it is. Major Carver reveals to Anne that David's spine was injured in combat, and even after the surgery, he was still in pain. He volunteered for a procedure that would turn off all of his pain receptors and allow him to consciously regulate the flow of adrenaline in his body, but the procedure changes him completely. In the process, he loses the ability to feel not just fear, but also empathy and guilt. Later, while the KPG has him understudy, David killed several people and escaped. He burned their bodies to cover his tracks and assumed the identity of David, who is also part of this project. Ironically, he was originally chosen for the experiment because of his strong empathy levels. No one could have predicted that he would have become so dangerous, which is why he was able to escape so easily. Based on the photo of Caleb and his comrades, it's reasonable to assume that David actually truly did know Caleb and was probably killed in the Middle East while David was injured and sent back to the U.S. It's also probable that they were close friends and that the promise to take care of Caleb's family in any way possible was something that he truly did promise to Caleb. The promise was probably only strengthened by this super soldier-like program. So it's almost like evil Captain America. Like, that's like what the concept of this is.
Yeah, the whole point of Captain America is that, like, the superhero or the super soldier serum makes whoever you are, like, it increases it tenfold or 100-fold or whatever. So like, you get strong, but you also, like, Steve Rogers is a really good altruistic person, and that's why he becomes like such an altruistic person.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of like, is that the idea is like, we're going to turn off your pain receptors, and accidentally they turn off every type of feeling that he could have.
I do like that we didn't know that, though.
Yeah.
I do think that it is, because I think that, again, if it's sort of this, like, throwback-y thing, so many of those movies would over-explain a thing, and then I would just be stuck with this sort of, like, tunnel vision of what this person, particularly, you know, villain, hero, whatever, I would be stuck with what this action star is doing and like what their character is doing, and I wouldn't be able to like maneuver otherwise. But like the nuances that Dan Stevens brings, because we don't know this background, it does make him the most entertaining part of the whole movie. Like anytime he was on the screen, which is almost the whole time, so
which is most of the movie.
Which is most of the movie.
He's got like an hour's worth of screen time.
Now, he's there almost the entire time, even in places where you don't expect him. He's in the principal's office. He's in the
that was really
he's in all
weird
these places.
I like
Super
that
weird.
he's basically like inserted himself into the family in such a way that he could be there. Now, one thing I do want to say is that you guys brought up a good point with that, explaining that backstory and kind of the discussion of it serves the movie better to not have explained that. And it's very interesting to me to know that, because it kind of puts the puzzle piece together for me. Now, as both of you know, and I think some people that listen to the show may know, I've been reading a lot of 80s mass market horror paperbacks. And one of my personal favorite subgenres is killer bugs. And they all follow the same fucking plot beats, which actually makes it annoying, because you're literally just like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I just want to get you just basically want a kill comp of what the bugs do, because it's always a heroic scientist who figures it out, how to kill them or how to dispel the whatever damage they're doing, and they have to go and they find out what the experiment was that turned them into this, and blah blah blah. And this movie follows, it feels like it plods along when it goes through all the plot points of an 80s like killer integrates themselves into the family thriller movie. And that's not something I like. I mean, like, that's not a surprise, but so I mean, I get that.
I think what they did that's interesting is, if you watch any of those 80s movies, there isn't some type of supernatural reasoning behind it. It's always just like crazy soldier or so like the idea of being like, okay, we're going to bring in our love of like comic books and horror and sci-fi to use that as a backbone to explain these like otherwise kind of unexplained trashy 80s movies, I think is why it does like walk that line of like, this does to me count as HMN fodder. And
I was, like I said, I was really just making a joke when I said that.
Listen, this is more HMN fodder than a previous pick of mine, Jason the Argonauts. So Carver and Ann
But I also understand why
school.
you picked that.
Yeah. Carver and Ann go to the high school to pick up Luke because he's setting up the Halloween dance. Just as they leave her work, David shows up to try to get information from Kristen and then immediately shoots her and blows up the entire diner. We jump to them getting to the school.
With a little bit of frustration. He doesn't seem like he really wants to be doing
he doesn't want to be doing these things, but he has to cover his tracks.
But murder is
rolls
annoying.
those two grenades. Yeah.
You
what
know?
was that?
And murder is annoying to him.
Murder's
it's not
annoying.
Like,
it's like exhausting.
Yes.
It's exhausting.
He's just bored. Do I have to
So
kill
they
another
arrive-
person today? Ugh.
They arrive at the school to get Luke, but not before David has already shown up, cut the lights, and attacks them while they're inside of a mirror maze, killing the teacher and Carver with a box cutter. And this is another one where I had to write a personal note here. I love this final set piece at the school dance. I love the hallway maze.
It's very Matt Kelly.
Yeah, the mixtape soundtrack playing over the speakers, the Halloween 3 masks hidden in the decoration behind David.
Did you catch that I used that for the images specifically because they're the Halloween 3 masks? Okay.
Yeah. Good. I mean, everything works so well. Anne asks Luke to hide while she tries to deal with David, only for David to stab her and attempt to choke her. She's saved by a misfired bullet causing a fire inside the school, while Luke stabs David with a knife that he was given earlier by him. David tells Luke that he did the right thing, and he gives him a thumbs up before collapsing. However, when the firefighters finally arrive, they only recover 2 corpses. This is when Anne notices that one of the firefighters is limping and turns around to reveal himself to be David quietly escaping. So we're about to get Fright School for a second here.
Let's go.
I could not find any discourse about this online, but I think that Luke's journey has some really interesting statements about his relationship with David as well as his own homosexuality. And I was thinking of it specifically that Anna begs him to hide, and she's only saved when he comes out of hiding, and then David gives him like a congratulations for that and tells him that he did the right thing. Like, I feel like Adam and Simon are smart enough that that's like a hidden subtext that they were putting in, because the movie is more about Luke. Like, as much as we follow Anne as the survivor / final girl, it's Luke's journey. It's Luke's journey and David and his relationship as like he's the one that sees David as a friend more than anybody. So I'm kind of I was like looking everywhere trying to find anyone who had discussed it, because like to me it seemed really obvious in that last scene that there was something there.
He was ready to go with the knife, and then he wasn't, and then he had to. Per our final girl, like, normalities, right? Like, so he ended up having to use the knife when the time was right. And then prior to that, not Luke related, but David related, the ability to then, when he's having his sex scene with the party's host, who's
Kristen.
Candace? No. Kristen, excuse me. Kristen, she blatantly says, it doesn't seem like you're enjoying this, and only is able to then enjoy when he is in control of the situation, which again, as a person who has to put all emotions and whatever to the side, whether it's natural or enhanced to be able to do so, he has to be in control in order to do those things. So then he is able to pass that to a normal human boy, a plain human boy, and pass that along down the road. And who knows what his relationship with Luke's brother was, in that. It's so vague, and it's so, that's a really interesting view of that.
That was just something that came to me while I was watching it. But I want to talk about this potential sequel thing that has popped up a couple times.
What's up with that?
This was made on a budget of $5 million. It only pulled in 2.7 in the box office. So this was a bomb. But critically, it had a 92% across the board and became like a cult classic very quickly. So that people were begging for a sequel. Well, a sequel was never produced, But in 2022, just 2 years ago, Lakeshore Records released an 80s synth-inspired soundtrack called The Guest 2, the original soundtrack, that the filmmakers did with a bunch of other synthwave producers. And then they later noted that the sequel soundtrack was intended as like a fun music-based project, but then while doing it, it kind of inspired them that they should maybe potentially pursue a feature-length sequel, and that Dan Stevens had expressed extreme interest in doing this role again.
Dude, all the people involved have even heightened their, like, where they've come from.
Their resume. Well, that's what I'm going to get into next.
Yes.
So
I mean,
Adam...
where are they now? This is your favorite VH1 show.
Adam Wingard said that him and Stevens discussed potential ideas for The Guest 2 when they were filming Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, and that a track from the Guest 2 soundtrack is in the movie as a fun Easter egg for the fans of The Guest. Like,
that is...
They were just like, fuck it, let's...
weird.
It's so weird, right? He also expressed regrets that they didn't get around to filming a sequel before Lance Reddick's death, saying that they had an idea of how they could have brought his character back for a sequel. That same year, so this was all in 2004 now, or 2024, Stevens said he was hesitant to answer any questions related to the sequel, saying that the future really does depend on Adam and Simon, but he admitted that he had spoken to Adam about potentially collaborating on other projects, and The Guest 2 kept coming up as a possible prospect. Wow. So, like... the star, the writer, and the director are all interested, and right now, like, this was the last indie film for Adam and Simon. Then they did the Blair Witch movie that, like, wasn't a success, but it put them on a map enough to do the Godzilla Kong movies.
Which is really weird. Like, that's another really weird step if you think about it.
I mean, just talk about, like, Micah Monroe coming off of Long Legs right now, too. Like, I mean, like,
and
all
They
the stars
Follow
could be...
is coming out this year, right?
Yeah,
God,
like, it's just,
yes.
it's a lot of weird, but I think that it's this interesting thing that you see. The example that I go to all the time is that, like, Phil Lord brought back Clone High, like, 20 years later, but, like, he kept saying, like, every successful movie, people would ask him, like, oh, what's next for you? And he's like, trying to get Clone High back. Like, he made Clone High as his first project. It got canceled after 5 episodes. But, like, his whole passion, like, it was like, and it wasn't until, like, he crushed it with the 21 Jump Street movie. He crushed it with the Lego movies. But it was Spider-Verse. When Spider-Verse was a huge hit, that was when he finally was able to get the, like, open door blank check, we'll produce whatever you want. And he was like, I want to bring Clone High back. Like, I think that The Guest is Simon and Adam's Clone High. Like, I think it's their thing that they made as an indie film that, like, they just felt like there was so much there that they could still work with. Because I think Your Next is so, like, there's no reason to do more Your Next, right? Like, that book is like a fully written chapter. Yeah. Like, it's all done. Where this feels like, oh, this is step one. And it makes me think that Scott, while you were like, on The Guest, I feel like The Guest 2 would end up being more of your energy, similarly to how, like, The Strangers Pray at Night.
Shut the fuck up!
Sorry.
You do this every week. I was going to say something in literally 5 minutes.
Yeah, sorry. But, like, the way that movie is such a step forward into being more of your sensibilities than the original movie,
and
like, I think that would have happened.
The same palettes.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com's primetime kickoff event. Save up to 50% off select styles, plus doorbusters. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Are you troubled by trying to find a great movie podcast to listen to? Do you experience a love for monster movies from the classic Universal era to the modern creature features?
Have you or your family ever watched episodes of Elvira, Monster Vision, or Svengoolie?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Open up your podcatcher and search for the professionals. The Monster Rally Podcast.
Our hilarious and asinine hosts have an ever-growing library of episodes for you to listen to 24 hours a day to serve all your monster movie needs.
We'll talk about it.
Well, you know what? This is a great time to mention, hey, double features. I'm willing to table mine. Scott, what would you want as your double feature?
Oh, well, for my double feature, I would go with Rotor.
Oh,
because
nice.
literally
What a
it's
curveball.
a killing machine. Rotor was my first one, but then I was like, visually, Strangers Prey at Night is pretty much. Although I had a lot more fun with Strangers Prey at Night because there's very little gun violence in it. I mean, there is like, I think that a couple people get killed with revolvers, like 2, maybe 1.
I forgot how many people get killed by guns, and it was like, I was watching this literally after you had made a comment in our group chat about something else related to like your disdain for gun violence in a horror movie, because it like you just feel like it kind of sucks out the joy of watching a horror movie a little bit. And I was like, oh no, as I'm like in bed watching this today, I'm like, I don't remember this much of it.
You take the headphones off, the gunshots are just still ringing.
Yeah.
Like,
but surely like, and maybe this is what the sequel will eventually get to, is like, in my memory, I remember the box cutter. I remember the knife. I remember the car. I remember him choking. Like, I remember thinking him as like this literal, like almost like the Terminator, this unstoppable killing machine that didn't need something like guns.
He literally is the Terminator because he gives the Terminator thumbs up.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that too. I almost wrote that on my notes. Much like the Terminator, he gives a thumbs up. Kyle, how about you? What's your double feature?
I kind of I want to watch Brain Scan. After this, it's so strange because it is sort of in this middle era between the two, between like an 80s and film and what The Guest is, but there is this sort of like puppeteering thing that happens. There's this sort of confusion and this unstoppability of the trickster, and the soundtrack is just such a character of it too. I don't know. I want to. Also, there's high school parties type stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like
Luke's character and Edward Furlong's character are kind of like these weird outcasts that get bullied, and then this guy comes in and like
try to do them right, and then
but
it's clearly
actually,
not
a murderous entity. Yeah. So I really do get where you're heading with that.
Because I don't want to watch Terminator, and that would be a great pick, but I don't want to watch it. So
have you ever seen Rotor?
Yeah.
I've never seen Rotor.
Oh, Kyle, you might be a Rotor-loving motherfucker.
We've done it on the show back in year 1.
That was like, that was in the first 100 episodes for sure. It was year 1 or
that
year
must
2.
Have been, that could not have been before. I mean, that had to have been sometime between episodes 10 and 70 at the absolute latest.
I think it actually literally may have been like episode 70 or 71. Like, if I was going to pick a number as someone who like constantly is trying to look at stuff on our website, I feel like it was the low 70s. All right, so I've got 2 options, right? If you're looking for a good time and I want to make up to my boy Scott, I'd say, hey, let's watch Captain America: Winter Soldier. Like another movie about a super soldier caught up in an evil, an evil thing that he has to be reversed or whatever, right? But if we're sticking in the horror genre, it's not going to be a good time. I think it's a great movie, but it's not going to be a good time when we watch Death Dream after this.
Which is fun. Same concept, though. Absolute genius move. You guys really killed it with your double features, not necessarily because I would want to do them, but rather because thematically they're
yes.
Chef's
well,
kiss.
Thank you.
If you wanted to give us some compliments on how good our double features are face to face, you can tell at least one of us that face to face this weekend at the Skate or Die Film Festival. Kyle, tell us about what you're going to be doing. Are you going to be officially in Philly?
So I It's so hard to say. Yes, hopefully, God willing, I will be there on Saturday, October 5th. So, Skater Die Film Festival, friend of the show, Justin Charles, has put this together, and it just sounds like the most fun. The festival runs Friday, Saturday. I will be there Saturday with Ouchie. Ouchie will be playing down there, along with a slew of other great flicks. There's an LGBTQA block. There's a straight horror block. There's roller skating. There's live music. There is so much happening that you should also come down and join us for. So Ouchie's going to be down there. I believe I'm going to be down there. I believe our writer Jeanette's going to be down there. Possibly our one of our actors, Kylie, they'll be down there. Yeah, it should be a good time.
On top of that film festival, though, also, as of right now, they are available on hmnpodcast.com. That's right, the scare packages are back. Get a surprise t-shirt, get some other surprise swag. We've got so much stuff right now. We got stickers, we got bars of soap, we got enamel pins, we got keychains. You'll get some cool assortments of stuff inside your scare package. Just let us know what size you are and if you already own any HMN shirts, because we want to try to avoid sending you a duplicate. And check it out. It was a blast last year. It'll be a blast this year. It helps us up with new merch. So help us out. Let's get rid of some of the old to bring in some of the new with a scare package. And lastly, guys, what did you watch, review, listen to, read, etc.? This was my pick, so I will dive in first on this. I did give away my what did I watch this week, or my double feature, but I'm keeping this as the first. Just because it ties it, like I said, my double feature was going to be Captain America and Winter Soldier, so why wouldn't I talk about when I saw Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters a couple weeks ago?
Can you be spoiler free, because I can
be spoiler free. It's great. It's just a good time. It's very funny. It's a good time. It was one of the few times I was like, you know what? I made the decision when I came home from San Diego Comic-Con that I had somehow averted spoilers that entire weekend, even though it was the weekend that the movie was released.
Yeah, that's wild.
That I was like, I can't keep rolling this dice anymore. So, like, it was literally like the Tuesday after I got home. I was like, Barb, you need to watch the kids for about 3 hours by yourself so I can see this movie before it gets ruined for me by the rest of the nerds and geeks.
By the world. They're closing in. They're closing in around me. I must
but you know what? A Tuesday afternoon with like 4 other people in the theater using my Regal Pass to get in for 50 cents. It was a perfect way to see Deadpool and Wolverine. But yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. It's hard to say, like, I don't know. I hear some people say it's the best of the Deadpool movies. I hear some people say it's the worst of the Deadpool movies. I don't know how to rank the Deadpool movies. They're just kind of in the moment when you're watching them, and then you move on with your life.
Yeah.
So
a popcorn movie, Matt.
It was my favorite Deadpool movie that I watched in 2024. That's what I'll say.
Perfect.
Wow, high praise.
Yes, but that's all I'll say for that. You've either seen it and know it's great, or you haven't seen it yet, and you'll watch it and you'll say, hey, that was pretty great.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything negative about it, honestly. Like, the worst I've heard is lukewarm, but I haven't heard anything negative, like truly negative. Kyle, do you want to go next? Do you want me to go next?
What? Sorry, I took my headphones off for just a second.
Do you want to go next, or would you like me to go next?
I knew that was going to happen. No, I'll go next. I actually watched another movie with a hall of mirrors, with a room, like a funhouse room of mirrors, called The New Kids. It's 1985, directed by Sean S. Cunningham.
What Thanksgiving movie is that?
Yeah, what's up? And it has James Spader and Lori Loughlin. Eric Stoltz is in it, and it is about 2 kids whose parents, Tom Atkins is their dad, but unfortunately he's in the movie for like 5 minutes and dies. They both their parents die in some sort of accident, and they have to go live with their aunt and uncle in Florida, which you would think is the worst part of the whole movie, but it's not. They are then bullied and picked on by a group of bullies led by James Spader, and they have just sort of like off the wall one-upsmanship of like, defense, offense of giving it back to each other, right? Lori Loughlin and the lead brothers, dad was an army general who like got promoted and like shook hands with the president like the day before he died, right? Like, so it's like they all come from, so they have their background. James Spader and his like drug dealer cronies have their own background. They're a bunch of punks, and it cranks to 11. Like there's face melting. There is animal attacks.
New kids. It's
the new kids.
The new kids.
I will say
year?
the one thing that I was 85, and there are two different posters.
Weird, Kyle. 1985.
Oh, I did it for your drink. And their uncle in Florida owns Santa's Funland, which is like a roadside attraction that has a Ferris wheel and a fun house and all this.
Are
shit,
you sure
right?
you're not confusing this with the Fear?
You wish I was confusing with the Fear. I'm very familiar. No, this is, but it's I had bought it last year, and I think that I actually might have sent 2 years ago. I might have put this on the Facebook group and told everybody, hey, your Dollar Tree has the New Kids on Blu-ray, and then I might have sent one to one or two of our listeners. The cover rules. Those masks that are in the back. Nobody wears a mask in the movie. That's not a mask. That is a nondescript clown statue that exists in the background of the Santa's Funland somewhere. It's such a bummer. I was waiting for these masks to come on, and nothing happened.
As much shit as we might want to talk about Sean S. Cunningham, man knows how to market a movie.
He knows how to market a movie for sure. And so if you like things like Class of 1984 or sort of like more like high school revenge-y type things, this is great. This is a lot of fun. And it's quick. It's like 95 minutes, maybe, tops. So.
All right. Scott, take us home.
All right. I really hate to be lukewarm, if I'm going to use that word again, about something in this segment, but I watched In a Violent Nature finally, and it's a really cool concept that's kind of fucking boring. And and it's not because of, we just spend half the movie watching. I mean, the entire movie is basically from the killer's perspective, but it's not behind the mask, like not the movie Behind the Mask, but rather it's not the first kill in it's not Maniac, it's not the first kill in Halloween 1978. And it's none of that. It's literally watching him trudge through the forest. He's Jason, like it's fine. It's very obvious what they were doing. Now, I thought that the idea of an ambient horror movie is fucking great. The problem with In a Violent Nature for me is that it's nothing more than an hour and a half kill comp, because I don't give a single flying fuck about any character in it. And it's so funny for me to say that, because when I think back to a lot of Friday the 13th movies, everybody is cannon fodder. But the thing is that
they're weirdly likable, though.
You have to like some of the characters.
Yeah.
You have to really like the survivor girl, because she's the only one that makes it. And
you have to at least know them in some capacity.
Well, do you remember the idea that I pitched years ago that I wanted to call Killer POV, where the idea was that you would recreate a Friday the 13th movie in the style of Maniac, but like it would be comedic in nature, like it would be like addressing all of the logical things that don't connect.
Yeah, I do remember this.
But the idea that I always struggle with was like within the script, I want it through this POV for you to always be overhearing what the camp counselors were talking about, so that even though you weren't seeing them, you were building this idea of who they were in some way. And I'm guessing what you're saying, you don't get enough of that?
They do that in A Violent Nature, and it's... They have like I said, they have the right concept. It's just written too weak for me to care about anybody. I think that it would take a true, and I don't mean that it's a bad screenplay, I mean that it would take a true master to write a screenplay for this movie, and because you have to basically world build through eavesdropping. All the exposition has to be eavesdropping. You can't, Mr. Exposition... You can't do any of the things like and like they have a harbinger and they have the guy that explains all the shit. Like, I get it. It just felt like they needed to let that marinate for another 2 years and make a truly perfect script. And it's very odd for someone like myself to say, oh, they need to make a perfect script for a movie that's literally a kill comp. I think that the people that really love it because it is a kill comp.
I was going to say, no one's really raving about the writing of that movie.
I know,
you know
but
what I
that's
mean?
what
Like,
I'm saying.
everything's like, oh my God, the
beautiful.
yoga scene. Or like, you know,
No,
like, it's
and the thing is like, that's the only interesting kill in the movie. There's a part where a guy fucking gets chopped up by a lumber splitting machine, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. You know, like, if you're going to be a kill comp in 2024, you're gonna have to really wow me. Like, you're gonna have to give me kills that I haven't seen before and that are cool. Like, I don't want to see another person get their head smashed with a rock. I don't want to see another person get stabbed. I don't want to see another person get, you know, their head cut at the jaw line. Like, I've seen all that stuff because I've seen every movie that these guys are aping, and I'm in on the joke. I think that they want people to be in on the joke. It just frustrates me to no end that if you're going to spend the time to make something, you can't phone it in. They did like 85%, and they should have done 100% to make it a truly special film because it's beautifully shot. And it's a cool concept.
Well, especially, and this is coming from someone who hasn't watched it yet, but probably still will eventually watch it.
You should.
Like, yeah. I mean, if you're going for something that different and experimental and something like that, you really do have to you have to go all the fully way, hit it out of the park.
Yes. I guess that I'm just not the target audience because I was like, the ambient nature of it really got me stoked because I know what they were doing. They were saying like the beauty of the forest and the violence of this killing machine within it. Awesome concept. Beautifully shot, beautifully presented. I just needed to care about the people who were dying because I was like, okay, get to the next kill, I guess. You know, that's really what it was for me. And the lore was solid for because every killer, every like supernatural killer has lore. It was solid. I just wish that they would have reached a little bit farther. That's really what I'm saying here. And I hope that I'm not coming down on it too much. It's because that first 10 minutes, I was like, oh my God, like this is a sweet presentation of this concept. And then I was like, at the 30-minute mark, I kind of knew what I was in for the next hour.
Yeah.
So that was where I was at.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. Well, what won't be a bummer is the little trick we have up our sleeve for next week. Just all we're going to say is stay tuned. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.